Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Please like and subscribe and watch more Saraset videos. Thank you. Today, we explore a concept that might seem unusual to some, but ancient in its roots and profound in its effects. Semen retention. Beyond the physical, this practice holds the potential to transform the mind, the spirit, and ultimately, one's entire reality. Let's explore how this one act of discipline can invite luck, abundance, and opportunity into our lives. We begin with a simple yet powerful truth. Your energy is your power. What we call sexual energy is not just for reproduction. It is creative life force itself. When this energy is constantly dissipated, so too is the fuel for our dreams, goals, and higher calling. But when retained, it can be transmuted into willpower, creativity, and vision. This leads us to our next point, self-control. The ability to say a no to short-term pleasure builds a muscle far more important than any physical one. The will. This self-mastery doesn't stay confined to your private life. It extends outward into your habits, your career, your finances, and your relationships. You become dependable, decisive, and focused. And when you're focused, life begins to cooperate with you. As this power builds, something interesting happens. You begin to radiate. There is a certain magnetism that surrounds a man or woman who retains their life force. It's not just confidence, it's presence. People sense it, whether they understand it or not. Then in a world full of distracted and depleted individuals, you stand out without needing to speak. Then comes purpose. With distractions cleared, you begin to hear your inner voice more clearly. Goals align, priorities shift. The fog lifts. You know what needs to be done, and you do it. And you do it. You're no longer chasing things, you're moving with intention, and opportunities start to chase you. At this point, what many call a look begins to appear. You meet the right people at the right time. The right job offer comes. A solution presents itself exactly when you need it. These are not accidents. These are synchronicities. The outer world starts reflecting your inner order. Finally, as this process continues, you enter a state of abundance. Not just material abundance, though that too may come, but emotional, spiritual, and intellectual richness. You feel full from within. You stop seeking approval, validation, or pleasure from the outside. And in that moment, you become a magnet for everything you once chased. In closing, semen retention is not about suppression, it's about transformation. It's not about denial, it's about direction. When you master your energy, you master your destiny. And when that happens, luck, abundance, and opportunity are no longer distant hopes. They become your everyday reality. Thank you. At the heart of semen retention lies a concept both ancient and transformative, the transmutation of sexual energy. This idea is not about mere physical abstinence or denial of desire, but rather about the elevation of raw instinct into higher consciousness, creative output, and inner power. In its purest form, it is about taking one of the most potent energies available to the human being, the energy that creates life, and converting it into personal evolution, success, and spiritual depth. Sexual energy is not just biological. It is also psychological, emotional, and deeply spiritual. It is a primal force wired into the human system for survival, but its potency extends far beyond reproduction. When you retain semen, you're not just preventing a release, you are conserving energy that has the potential to be redirected. This energy, rather than being spent outwardly, begins to circulate inwardly. It starts feeding your mind, your nervous system, your ambitions, your ability to focus, and even your intuitive insight. The idea of energy transmutation suggests that this life force does not die when held back, it changes form. Like steam under pressure, it gains intensity. It seeks outlets, and if one has the awareness and discipline, that outlet can be work, passion projects, physical fitness, intellectual pursuits, or even spiritual practices. Artists, warriors, monks, inventors, and leaders across time have tapped into this principle, often without needing to name it. Modern society conditions men in particular to discharge their sexual energy frequently and without reflection. The result is a loss of vitality, scattered mental focus, emotional instability, and lack of motivation. Over time, this constant depletion creates not only physical fatigue, but a spiritual dryness, a feeling of being disconnected from purpose, from passion, and from inner strength. But when semen is retained and transmuted, a reversal begins. There's a sense of building momentum, of rising internal pressure. that when channeled wisely creates breakthroughs. This transmutation has measurable effects. On a physical level, it often results in improved testosterone levels, clearer skin, deeper voice resonance, and more physical endurance. On a mental level, it boosts concentration, improves memory, and increases the ability to delay gratification, the cornerstone of all long-term success. Emotionally, one becomes more stable, less reactive, and more centered. Spiritually, there's a growing sense of presence and connection to something beyond the ego. But the most remarkable effect lies in the shift of identity. You begin to see yourself not as someone constantly seeking pleasure, but as a builder, a creator, a channel for something greater. Desires do not disappear, but they become tools rather than tyrants. The very energy that once pulled you toward distraction or lust can now push you toward purpose and clarity. It becomes a fuel source for discipline, ambition, and vision. The practice of transmuting sexual energy is not a modern trick. It is a return to an ancient understanding of how energy works within the human system. It is the realization that your body houses more than instincts. It houses a creative current, a potential that, when cultivated, can birth ideas, generate wealth, build legacies, and even spark moments of deep inner awakening. This power doesn't require suppression, but refinement. A willingness to delay gratification in order to access something far more fulfilling, something that no screen, no indulgence, and no momentary pleasure can replicate. Sexual energy, when retained and raised up the spine, begins to influence the higher centers of the brain, particularly those associated with insight, planning, intuition, and spiritual perception. In ancient traditions, this movement was seen as essential for enlightenment, and in modern terms, it fuels flow states, creative breakthroughs, and entrepreneurial drive. It's the same energy, simply rerouted from base impulse to visionary expression. Semen retention is not just a physical discipline. It is a deep psychological training ground for self-control and willpower. In a world dominated by instant gratification and endless distractions, the ability to delay pleasure has become increasingly rare, and therefore incredibly powerful. The consistent practice of semen retention builds and refines this internal power, allowing a person to exert mastery not only over their impulses, but also over the broader direction of their life. Every time the impulse arises to indulge in sexual release, there is a moment of choice. In that space between stimulus and response, you are presented with a mirror. Either surrender to the immediate craving or transmute that desire into focus, strength, and a long-term reward. Each time you choose restraint, you reinforce neural pathways associated with discipline. This is not about suppression. It is about reorientation. The desire does not vanish, but it becomes a resource, something you learn to carry rather than release, and eventually channel. This process strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, foresight, and impulse control. When this area is activated repeatedly through acts of will, like resisting a powerful urge, it becomes more resilient, more responsive, and more dominant. Over time, this neurological training extends beyond sexuality. It begins to touch every area of life: how you eat, how you speak, how you spend your time, and how you handle stress. True self-control is not the rigid denial of pleasure, but the ability to choose wisely in moments of intensity. Semen retention offers daily opportunities to practice this, to stand firm against one of the strongest biological urges known to man. With every act of resistance, you build your capacity to face discomfort, temptation, and emotional volatility, the very things that derail most people's goals and aspirations. What begins as a personal choice soon becomes a foundation of character. People who practice semen retention over time often report greater consistency in their work, sharper focus in their studies, and deeper presence in their relationships. This is because energy that once leaked away unconsciously is now held, circulated, and used with intention. The simple act of saying no to one urge creates a ripple effect of yes in countless other areas. Willpower is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use and weaker with neglect. In our modern culture, people are constantly giving into the path of least resistance. Whether it's junk food, social media scrolling, or excessive comfort seeking, the result is the same: a slow erosion of inner strength. Semen retention is a direct reversal of this trend. It is an act of inner rebellion against passivity and a statement of commitment to your higher self. There's also a profound emotional benefit that arises from increased self-control. Self-respect. Each time you uphold your own standards and resist the pull of base gratification, your self-image improves. You begin to see yourself as trustworthy, someone who keeps promises, even the private ones. This confidence is not loud or boastful. It is quiet and unshakable. It radiates in your posture, your eye contact, your choices, and your energy field. Heightened self-control also creates space for clarity. Without the constant fog of overstimulation and depleted energy, your mind becomes sharper, your emotions more stable, and your choices more aligned with your values. You become less reactive to external triggers and more centered in your inner world. The noise dies down. The signal gets stronger. Eventually, this discipline cultivates a strong internal locus of control, a deep knowing that your life is in your hands, not determined by impulse, emotion, or environmental pressures, and this inner strength becomes a magnetic force. People sense it. Opportunities come to those who move with steadiness and conviction, not because they are lucky, but because they have become rare in a distracted world. The will, once scattered, is now forged into focus, and that focus becomes power. One of the most intriguing effects of semen retention is the emergence of a magnetic aura, a subtle, yet undeniable energy that draws people, attention, and opportunities toward you. This isn't about surface-level attractiveness or charm. It's a deeper, more primal form of charisma that originates from within. It's not learned through techniques or mimicry. It arises naturally as your inner energy builds, stabilizes, and becomes coherent. At the core of this magnetism is retained life force energy. When you refrain from constantly dissipating your sexual energy, that essence, potent, vital, and creative, stays within the body. It begins to radiate through your posture, your tone of voice, your eye contact, and your very presence. This energy is not visible to the eye in a conventional sense, but it is unmistakably felt. People around you sense something different, a quiet intensity, a grounded calm, a sense of control and strength that doesn't need to announce itself. There's a biological and energetic explanation for this. Semen contains the building blocks of life: enzymes, amino acids, minerals, and hormones like testosterone. When this is retained, the body doesn't just store it, it reabsorbs and circulates it, feeding the nervous system and enhancing vitality. The skin begins to glow. The voice deepens. The eyes sharpen. There is a feeling of fullness, not bloated or tense, but alive and present. This vitality acts like a beacon to others, drawing them in without effort or performance. Charisma in this sense is not about trying to impress. It's about embodying something rare in the modern world: presence. Most people are scattered, mentally fragmented, emotionally volatile, and energetically depleted. When someone enters a room with full energy, rooted awareness, and no need to chase validation, others feel it immediately. The contrast is striking. That person becomes someone others want to follow, listen to, and be near, not because of status, but because of resonance. The magnetic aura developed through retention also shifts your relationship with others, particularly in social and romantic contexts. Without the constant mental loop of lust, fantasy, or neediness, you begin to relate to people from a place of authenticity. You no longer approach with hidden agendas or a sense of lack. There's no desperation in your energy, and that absence alone makes your presence more powerful. Whether in business, friendships, or intimacy, people are drawn to grounded individuals who operate from a sense of inner abundance. This subtle charisma also has an effect on how you perceive yourself. When you begin to see the effects of retention, more confidence, more attention, more respect, you start to carry yourself differently. There's less need to posture or pretend. The confidence is not ego-driven, it's energetic. You simply know your worth. And because you're not leaking your energy in private, you show up with fullness in public. This fullness cannot be faked. It must be cultivated. What's also fascinating is how this magnetic presence translates into real-world opportunities. People may offer help, collaborations, or even mentorships seemingly out of nowhere. You may find yourself invited into spaces or conversations that were previously closed off. Others begin to see you as a leader, someone who can be trusted, someone who has depth and integrity. This is not due to manipulation or charm, but rather the energetic transmission of self-respect and inner power. There's a timeless truth that energy precedes outcome. Before people hear your words or assess your credentials, they feel your vibration. They register your presence, whether you're grounded or scattered, focused or distracted, full or empty. Semen retention reorganizes your inner field, sharpening it, strengthening it, and making it more coherent. And this coherence, this alignment of internal power, creates a gravitational pull that is felt far beyond words, style, or strategy. One of the most profound effects of semen retention is the gradual but powerful shift toward alignment with purpose. In a world that constantly bombards the mind with distractions, temptations, and noise, many people drift through life without clarity, direction, or depth. Their energy is spread thin, and their sense of purpose becomes clouded. But when sexual energy is retained and transmuted, the fog begins to lift. What was once diffused becomes focused. What was once reactive becomes intentional. And in that clarity, a deeper purpose begins to emerge. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It is the natural consequence of energy being redirected inward rather than constantly projected outward. Semen retention allows for a build-up of life force energy, and as that energy accumulates, it starts to nourish the deeper layers of your consciousness. Desires that once dominated the mind begin to quiet. Urges that once distracted you now feel less urgent. You begin to notice what truly matters to you, what lights you up, what resonates with your core, and what you're actually here to do. The alignment with purpose is not simply a matter of choosing a career or setting a goal. Setting a goal. It is about becoming deeply aware of your unique role in the world, the combination of talents, passions, and callings that only you can embody. But to perceive this clearly, the mind must be quiet and the energy must be intact. Semen retention gives you both. It creates stillness in the mind and strength in the body. It tunes your internal compass so that you can begin to sense what feels authentic, meaningful, and aligned. This is where the power of clarity becomes visible. Many people set goals based on social conditioning, external pressure, or the illusion of success. They chase things that don't resonate with their soul, and as a result, they often feel empty, frustrated, or burned out. When you retain your energy and stop chasing temporary pleasure, your vision shifts inward. You begin to question what truly brings fulfillment. You stop moving from fear or lack and start moving from inspiration and inner truth. As the energy builds, so does your intuition. You begin to receive insights not from overthinking, but from a deeper place of knowing. Patterns become more obvious. You can sense when something is right or wrong for you, even without full logic to explain it. The decisions you make begin to align with your inner values, not just external outcomes. This is the beginning of living from purpose, acting in harmony with your deepest truth, rather than constantly reacting to surface-level desires. When you live in an alignment with purpose, your energy becomes more focused. You are no longer pulled in a dozen directions. You don't need to be constantly motivated because purpose becomes the engine that drives your actions. Discipline becomes easier. Obstacles seem less intimidating. There's a sense of flow, a rhythm in your life where your actions, thoughts, and goals all move in the same direction. There's also a shift in how you relate to time and progress. You become less impatient because you're no longer acting out of desperation. You begin to trust the process, knowing that each step you take, no matter how small, is in service of something meaningful. The work you do feels worthwhile. The sacrifices you make feel justified because you are not just working for results. You are working in alignment with who you truly are. People often confuse pleasure with purpose. Pleasure is fleeting, external, and dependent on stimulation. Purpose is enduring, internal, and grounded in service and growth. When you are constantly indulging in pleasure, especially the fleeting release of sexual energy, your sense of purpose becomes buried under noise. But when that energy is retained and redirected, it acts like a spotlight, illuminating what truly matters and revealing the path you are meant to walk. One of the most fascinating effects of semen retention, especially when practiced over time with awareness and discipline, is the noticeable increase in synchronicities, those strange moments where life seems to align perfectly, effortlessly, even miraculously. People begin to describe experiences as a lucky or a coincidental. But in reality, what they're witnessing is the natural byproduct of energetic alignment and inner clarity. Semen retention sharpens perception, increases sensitivity to patterns, and brings you into harmony with a deeper rhythm of life that many overlook. When you are constantly depleting your energy, your awareness becomes dulled. You are less present, less connected, and more reactive. But when that vital energy is retained, conserved, and elevated, something shifts within your consciousness. You start to see connections you previously missed. You meet the right people at the right time. Opportunities that seemed out of reach suddenly present themselves. Resources you didn't know existed appear when you need them most. It begins to feel like the world is working with you instead of against you. This is not magic or superstition. It's the consequence of living with greater conscious intention and energetic coherence. The mind becomes quieter, the emotions more stable, and the intuition more active. You begin to notice signals that others overlook. Subtle signs, gut feelings, moments of insight that point you in the right direction. What appears as luck to the outside world is actually the result of an enhanced inner navigation system made sharper by the discipline of semen retention. In psychology, there's a term known as reticular activation. It refers to the brain's ability to filter information and focus only on what's relevant. When your energy is scattered through overstimulation, constant gratification, or emotional chaos, the filter becomes cluttered. You miss what matters. But when your energy is clean and strong, your perception refines, and the reticular system begins picking up on cues and clues that guide your next move. What seemed like luck is simply increased awareness and alignment. Energy is magnetic. When you are grounded, focused, and centered, your inner state begins to attract outer experiences that reflect your frequency. Retention builds this magnetic energy. You are no longer chasing, you are resonating. And the universe responds to frequency more than effort. This is why people who seem calm, centered, and purpose-driven often experience more breakthroughs with less struggle. Their energy is aligned, and semen retention is one of the most direct ways to cultivate this state. There's also a shift in time perception and decision-making. When you're caught in compulsive patterns, you're usually behind life, always reacting, always catching up. But when you retain your vital energy, you start to move in sync with life. You arrive early instead of late. You call someone just as they're thinking of you. You find yourself in the right place at precisely the right moment, again and again. These are not random events. They are indicators that your inner and outer worlds are synchronizing. What people call a look is often the result of being deeply connected to their own energy. Most people try to manipulate outcomes by effort, force, or strategy. But when you are truly centered, your actions become more precise, your words carry more weight, and your steps become more aligned with the unseen structure of events unfolding around you. Semen retention amplifies this alignment by reducing inner chaos and increasing energetic presence. The more aligned your energy, the fewer obstacles you encounter. Doors open not because you force them, but because you're walking in the right direction with the right frequency. You begin to trust your instincts more. You no longer second-guess every move. You say yes to the right things and no to what drains you. This decisiveness invites flow, and flow attracts opportunity. What others interpret as fortunate or random is actually the result of deliberate inner cultivation of your energetic field through retention. One of the most transformative effects of semen retention is the gradual development of a manifestation-based mindset rooted in abundance rather than scarcity. Of the most transcendental. In everyday life, most people operate from a subconscious belief in lack. They feel they are not enough, don't have enough, or must struggle and compete to get what they want. This scarcity mindset is perpetuated by constant energetic depletion, especially through unchecked sexual indulgence. When energy is habitually released without purpose, it creates a cycle of internal emptiness that reinforces external dissatisfaction. Semen retention interrupts this pattern and begins to reverse it by shifting the source of power from external gratification to internal fullness. At the heart of manifestation is belief and energy. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions form the blueprint of your reality. But it is your energetic state that determines how powerfully and consistently that blueprint materializes. When you practice semen retention, your life force, your creative essence, is no longer being lost. Instead, it is stored and redirected. This increase in energetic capacity makes your thoughts and intentions carry more weight. You're not just thinking about your goals. You are charging them with focused, magnetic energy. You begin to notice that your desires feel more reachable and that your environment starts to shift to support them. This is where the abundance mindset begins to emerge. As you retain and transmute your energy, you feel stronger, more self-sufficient, and more whole. You begin to trust in your ability to create, attract, and receive. You are not waiting for permission or relying on external validation to move forward. You recognize that your own internal state, the quality of your thoughts, emotions, and energy, is what draws abundance into your life. This shift is subtle but powerful. It changes how you show up in the world. You become less reactive and more intentional, less anxious, more assured, less desperate, more magnetic. The abundance mindset also cultivates gratitude and presence. When you are no longer courting compulsive desires or the need for constant stimulation, you begin to appreciate the present moment more deeply. This appreciation is not passive, it is a foundation for manifestation. Gratitude aligns your vibration with abundance. You stop focusing on what's missing and start recognizing what's already available. This recognition doesn't make you complacent, it inspires you. It shifts your energy from striving to receiving, from chasing to aligning. Semen retention also fuels a deeper connection to vision and long-term creation. The energy that was once used for short-term pleasure now becomes available for long-term building, whether it's a business, a mission, a creative project, or a higher spiritual path. With energy no longer scattered, your actions become more strategic, your goals more refined, and your persistence more consistent. Manifestation is not just about dreaming big. It's about backing those dreams with sustained energy and unwavering belief. Retention provides both. As this inner reservoir of energy builds, your emotional state becomes more stable and expansive. You are less triggered by setbacks and more open to possibilities. This mental emotional stability is critical for manifestation because it keeps your frequency aligned with what you desire rather than pulled down by doubt, fear, or impatience. You stop thinking in terms of if and start operating from a when. Your posture, words, and decisions begin to reflect the assumption of success, and that assumption becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Abundance also shows up in relationships and interaction. As you become more whole within yourself, you no longer seek to extract validation, pleasure, or attention from others. Instead, you bring value. You contribute energy rather than consume it. This makes you more attractive in every sense, socially, professionally, and romantically. People sense your inner fullness and they naturally respond to it. This dynamic opens doors, deepens connections, and draws in opportunities that match your elevated state of being.